When we exploit animals and we justify exploiting them, we compare traits of animals to those of humans. So, for example, animals are not as intelligent as humans. Animals don't know what's going on around them because they're too stupid to do that. We compare animal traits to human traits. They don't share human traits. That makes it acceptable to exploit them. That is like a common thing that people talk about, bring up. But is this really true? For example, speaking a human language, does that apply to every human having intelligence, certain IQ? Does that include everyone, human? Speaking of IQ, some pigs reported higher IQ than humans. We just assume that every human has some traits, like intelligence, walking bipedally, speaking a human language. We always say this phrase, humans are on top of the food chain. Humans have developed so much that distinguish them from the rest of the animal kingdom. That's what a lot of people say. But just having some traits justify killing and exploiting them just because someone doesn't have enough intelligence, does that justify killing them and exploiting them? That is not a rational reason. That is not an acceptable statement, in my opinion. Plus, isn't it ableist to assume that every human has these traits? If you don't know what ableism is a discrimination against disability. So in this case, if we subscribe to this faulty logic of whether someone deserves the rights to live or do something that they like, therefore not being exploited, it is very ableist thinking. And not only does it devalue lives of other animals, but also some humans as well. Because like I said, not everyone is capable of doing these things. I have autism. I have trouble reading social situations, social cues, reading facial expressions of others, and being empathized with other people. I have trouble time doing those. Since that falls out of normal human ability, which is to understand other people and read social cues, does that mean my life is not worth living? Or I am fortunate enough to be high functioning autistic, so what about those people with severe autism? Those people who can verbalize themselves. They don't speak their human language, do they? Does that mean we can exploit and kill them? A friend on a wheelchair. She can't stand bipedally, not walking either. It definitely falls out of this human nature thing. Does that mean we can exploit and kill her? Now, if you say yes to these things, I am terrified of you. So what we do basically when talking about veganism and justify killing and exploiting other animals, we use ableistic view. Animals don't have this capacity, therefore they're not us. Although some members of us are like that too. And what these traits have anything to do with whether someone deserves to live, do something, it doesn't make sense. It is irrational. So where does this faulty logic come from? Ableism. And I talked about this before, but ableism and speciesism, they are coming from the same root, neglecting abnormal traits. I wouldn't even call it abnormal, but in this society where normalcy is valued, I regret to say that it is still the case, that some traits are not respected or dignified. I have experiences as an autistic person having this sort of prejudice towards me, so I guess that makes me more able to empathize with other animals. So why do we do this? Why do we become ableist despite its obvious wickedness and immorality? I believe this is because we live in an intersubjective world. Now, what is intersubjective? Well, let's look at objective and subjective and intersubjective. We're gonna give examples for each, and you get what I mean. So objective is something that is true, regardless of your opinion or my opinion or anyone's opinion. Example is oxygen on Earth, ultraviolet from the sun, the fact that we go around the sun. Those are objective truths that cannot be altered. That is objective. Now, subjective is just your opinion, individual opinion. So you might find Jennifer Aniston very attractive, whereas I find Megan Fox very attractive. So it's just an individual opinion. You might find Sarah Jessica Parker very attractive. You might like bananas. You might prefer grapes to lemons. whatever. These are subjective. Now, what's intersubjective? Intersubjective is something is right just because the majority of people think it is right. Now, example is slavery. Nobody didn't think slavery was a bad thing because it was acceptable in this society. So was apartheid, discrimination against African people, Black African people, no votes for women. So these are intersubjective things. Fortunately, these things have changed. People realized its wickedness and immorality. That's why the government abolished slavery and apartheid and gained women's suffrage. That's like an example of intersubjective. And our intersubjective right now is unfortunately eating meat or animal products is acceptable. Consuming animal products is acceptable. This is just because so many of us believe that it is acceptable. So intersubjectivity is very scary thing because something is going to be right regardless of whether it's morally right or wrong. Just because a lot of people believe that it's right, it becomes right. So you see what I mean? This vegan movement, animal rights movement, is all about changing this intersubjective reality into the intersubjectivity that inflicting pain on others is a morally wrong thing to do. What we need to do is question people about their immorality, whether it's acceptable to exploit and kill beings, sentient beings, solely just because for their taste buds or just because they share different traits from us. And a lot of us think it's still acceptable because animals don't share some of the human traits, but that is an ableistic view, just like I said in the beginning of this video. So what we need to do is question their morality. Thanks to all my patrons. If you don't know what Patreon is a platform where subscribers can get exclusive content from the creator. My Patreon page is all about becoming mentally stronger in this non-vegan world. So if you're interested, the link is in the description below. Check it out. はい。ここから日本語で話しますけど、動物性を使う、買う、食べる時の言い訳でよく言われるのが、動物には人間ほどの知能ないし、言葉も話せない。だから搾取してもいい。この動物が持ってないもの、人間が持っているものを動物が持っていないっていうことを言い出す人が多いんですよ。例えば知能とか二足歩行じゃないとか、そんなにそれは言われないですけど、まあよく言われるのがあれですね。知能が低い。でもこういう特徴って誰かが生きる価値があるない時の判断材料になりますか？誰かが知能を IQ をそれほど持ってないからといってその人を搾取して殺してもいいっていう理由はありますかね？僕はないと思うんですよ。で、まずすごくその知能とか IQ、言語能力で誰が生きるか、誰が生きていいかっていう差別するっていうのはすごく障害者差別なんですね。人間の中にもそういう言葉が話せない人とか、二足歩行できない人とか、IQ が低いとかいろいろいるじゃないですか。例えば僕自閉症を持っています。空気を読んだりとか、相手の人の感情、表情を読み取るとか、気持ちを汲み取るっていうことが僕はすごく苦手なんですね。じゃあ、それって一般的に言われてる人間、多くの人間、マジョリティの中には入らないですよね。じゃあ、僕の命は搾取されたり殺されてもいいですか？僕は高機能自閉症だから、まだ恵まれてる方なんですけど、すごく重症の自閉症の人っていうのは言葉も話せない、言語化できない、そういう人たちの人生も搾取して殺してもいいですか？友達で車椅子に乗ってる人がいるんですけど、彼女は二足で歩くことも立つこともできないし、まして歩くことなんてできません。搾取してもいいですか？これ全部にいいです、搾取してもいいですって言った人はちょっと怖いです。まず種差別と障害者差別っていうのは密接に関わっていると思ってて、種差別、動物を差別する理由が僕たちが障害者差別をするからだと思うんですよ。さっきも言った通り、人間にはこれがありますと、動物にはこれがありません。人間だけがあるって言われてるものでも全員が人間、全員が持ってるわけじゃないんですよね。だからこういった考え方っていうのは動物の命はもちろん人間の命、中には人間の命も価値がないものって思っちゃうんですよ。 だからすごく危険な考え方なんですね。簡単に言うと、特徴とか知能とかで生死が決められてる。殺してもいい、搾取してもいいって言われてるのって、道徳的に言うまでもなくおかしいんですよね。道徳的じゃないんですよ。だけど、どうしてこんなに人々はこんなに明らかに道徳的じゃないのにし続けるのか、差別し続けるのか。それは僕たちが観主観的な世界に生きてるからなんですよ。観主観的って何でしょう？はい。それに行く前に、客観的、主観的を見てみましょう。客観的は事実です。例えば、地球上には酸素があります。太陽からは紫外線 UV が出ます。ウルトラバイオレットが出ます。僕たちは太陽の周りを回っています。これはあなたの意見がどうであろうと変わらない客観的事実ですよね。じゃあ主観的は何でしょうか？あなたが橋本環奈さん好き。だけど僕は荒木優子さんの方が好き。こういった個々の好みです。私はバナナが好き。あなたはリンゴの方が好き。これは主観的ですよね。観主観的は何でしょうか？観主観的っていうのは何かが正しい。それは多くの人がそう信じてるから正しいだけ。これが観主観的です。例えば昔の例で言うと奴隷制度があった時はそれは一般的に行われてた。で、多くの人はそれが普通だと思ってた。アパルトヘイトもそうですよね。黒人の人が差別を受けていた。人権もない。あとは女性の投票する権利がなかった。これもその時代で普通と言われていたから。だけど時間が経つうちにみんなが道徳的じゃないことに気づくんですよ。こういう制度が。それでそういう奴隷制とかアパルトヘイトはなくなって女性に投票する権利が与えられたりしたんですよね。で、今その観主観的言われてるのは動物性は買ってもいいです。それはもう一般的に流通しているし、それは合法だから。で、みんながやってるからみんなそれが普通と思っている。だけどさっきの例みたいにこういった観主観的なものっていうのは多くの人が変われば変わることができるんですよ。だから僕がしたいのは一人一人の道徳性を自分自身に考えてもらって自分が正しいと思う方向に進んでほしい。罪もない動物たち、生まれた瞬間殺されたり搾取されたり親から引き離されたり、こういうことをされているっていうのが現状なんですよね。これは僕は気づいたから、おかしいっていうことに気づいたから変われたんで、僕たちができることはなるべく多くの人にこれが道徳的なのか道徳的に正しいのかっていうことを聞いていく。で、自分の意見を引き出してもらう。で、やっぱりその障害者差別と種差別が根本にある問題だと思うんですよ。で、この2つの共通点は少し普通という箱から外れたものは全部尊厳とか尊敬もしなくていい、どうでもいい、権利どうでもいい、搾取してもいい、そんな感じになってると思うんですよ。だから道徳観を皆さん徐々に変えていきましょう。以上です。ありがとうございました。